I do think that we are still going to have certainly human reporters reporting on the news in the future. I really hope we do anyways. That's my plan. But nevertheless, I think we are going to see an integration of artificial intelligence, which is going to create some efficiencies, which in turn could result in some job losses. For example, I know someone that produces, I won't say who, but they have a glossy kind of a magazine that they produce. And it's quite niche, and it's in one geographic region in Canada. But this person, she said that it would normally take about 4 days to put this together. And she put the whole thing in, including with the images and everything, in about 4 hours.
Bonjour. Hello, everyone. I'm Nata, host of the NATA PR School podcast. You're a successful entrepreneur or marketing manager, and you're about to launch a new product or service, or you've been selling your goods for quite some time, but you want to learn how to increase your visibility, get known, and reach more clients? At NATA PR, we deal with real clients every day, and we'll teach you simple, fun, and honest PR solutions. You'll learn easy steps to combine PR to social media right now. Keep listening and let's get started. Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the NATA PR School podcast, episode 230. And I'm thrilled today because I have a guest with me, someone that I respect and admire a lot, Craig Patterson. And I'll do a little introduction, and I'm going to ask all kinds of questions about the media world, because he created and founded this amazing media called Retail Insider in 2012. So he's the CEO and publisher of Retail Insider. And Greg is a very sought-after retail and consultant expert. He has studied the Canadian retail landscape for more than 25 years, I believe. And for me, Greg is also the expert, the one must consult, the one expert you need to ask any questions about what's happening all across Canada, about anything retail. He would know. And I used to call him very often, and I still do, when we have a new brand entering the market, a new store opening. So we did amazing things for Van Cleef & Arpels and for Moscone and some other brands across, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. So welcome, Greg, and thank you so much for accepting my invitation today.
Thank you for having me.
I ask all my guests this question just so I can learn more about you. And even when I'm talking to and do podcasts with people that I've known for many years, I discover always many things. So my first question that I didn't share with you is, who are you, Craig Patterson?
Good question. Right now, of course, as you mentioned, I'm the CEO and publisher of Retail Insider. Probably your next question would be why did I found it and how and when? I actually founded the business while I was a lawyer. So I was working in the BC courts. I was also working part-time, oddly enough, with at-risk and homeless youth at Covenant House. So I was doing a couple of really interesting jobs, and as a bit of an outlet to get away from that, I started a blog. And came in as no real retail experience, honestly, really, other than having worked in a small store in a museum when I was in university, but something I was always interested in. And so it's, my life and I think business have kind of merged together.
That's amazing. But I remember, because I've been, reading your the website and following you on social media platforms for a long time, probably more than 10 years, and the media has evolved quite a bit. So how has it changed? What were your goals in 2012 when you founded it? It was more like a part-time job, if I understand correctly what you said, and so it became a full-time...
Yeah, I don't even think it was that. It was meant just to be an outlet and to be fun. So I never really meant Retail Insider to be a business or anything. I didn't really necessarily have a focus when I started it. I reported on Nordstrom possibly coming into Canada, but then I think my second article was on a department store in Germany, and I think the third one was about Bloomingdale's opening. It was probably another store somewhere, I can't remember where, but it didn't really have necessarily a Canadian focus. But when I found out how to check statistics on the blog, I realized that most of the readers were Canadian, and I thought, well, that probably makes it easy. I could focus it in on Canada, and eventually I took focus and said it's going to be retail news. And that's when it really took off, because apparently there wasn't, one single retail news publication in Canada at the time, or well, there is now, obviously, mine.
There
But
is
yeah.
now, thanks to you, but yeah, I don't think there were many, like maybe some blogs, like little blogs, but no real media covering, what was happening retail wise, in Canada for sure. So that was not your goal when you first started. So you just, as you were, having, I guess, covering different subjects and openings across Canada. So you decided to focus really on Canadian retail. Did people started coming to you?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we had people coming to Retail Insider telling us what was happening with retail, and some of it was even brokers that were, either involved in deals or were indirectly involved in deals, I guess you would say in some cases. So they were providing information. So I had a lot of insider information fairly early on with Retail Insider, and so it got to be quite buzzy. I think because I didn't have a lot of established relationships with a lot of brands and retailers and landlords and everywhere else. People used to joke that Retail Insider was a little bit like the TMZ of retail because it was kind of gossipy, and I would, talk about different things. And I was talking about, and I would, I guess, sort of break news that, some companies maybe always didn't want to be broken at the time, and I didn't fully understand, what I was doing and how it all worked and whatnot. So it was fun and it was a learning experience at the same time, but it definitely got Retail Insider on the map because I think it built a brand awareness, and people like that buzz because people like to be informed on what's happening, and also people, I think by their nature like to know things first and know what other people don't know. So Retail Insider serves all of those purposes. At least that's what I've been told by people who read it.
That's so interesting, especially in the landscape of media that you've seen, just like me, so many media just, don't survive, disappear. So you're kind of a very strange, a very unique media. And so what is your thinking about that? Like, so you're growing, obviously you've been growing, and, when you see what's happening in the media world, what do you think your role or your position is right now?
Well, we're trying to be a comprehensive news site. There is other media out there that'll report on certain things around retail. It's usually the bigger stories like the earnings report from Aritzia or Lululemon, or like those sorts of things. You'll see those as national stories, but we weren't seeing a lot of the granular reporting that was happening. It would be either local news, which isn't even doing a lot, I would say, these days. This is something I've noticed that's changed. A lot of local news now isn't reporting on even just local openings of things that are happening, at least in larger cities like, say, Edmonton and Calgary and Winnipeg. So we're filling that role as well, strangely enough. So, because and I think media has changed. I mean, I've noticed that mainstream media certainly isn't reporting as comprehensively as it did in the past, and that makes me sad because I got interested in the retail industry and just in other things generally through reading the news when I was younger. In the 1980s and 90s, and I think that things were done a lot better back then. And again, part of the reason that makes me sad is because I see these news articles from the past as being part of our history, and it's part of the historical documentation of what's been happening. And I don't think that documentation is going to be the same here. Retail Insider, I think, is serving that purpose, and I want that website to survive beyond, if I went away in the future, just to maintain that, retail history news, because it is also documenting history, and I think that's important. I take that as a bit of a stewardship as well.
That's interesting. Can you find kind of a segment that, some business media will be talking once in a while, but you're right. Like I used to have, because I'm as my listeners know, I'm a PR expert and I'm specialized in consumer goods. For me, your media is extremely important, but we used to have more coverage in, let's say, a major newspaper, and not anymore. So I think you play a very important role, because these media don't cover retail as they used to, for sure, like even less and less. So what do you think is going to happen in the future?
I think that there will continue to be cuts probably in mainstream media. I mean, this is a trend that we've seen. It's been huge. So it may end up being that we're going to see less and less reporting. Also, some of the best business reporters that we see out there get scooped up by PR firms. So not to say anything bad whatsoever, of course, Natalie, about PR firms. It's pretty darn smart, actually, if you think about it, because someone that's worked in the news is going to know how to pitch a news story to a journalist or a news editor or whoever they're doing the pitching to. But I think it's brilliant. So I do know quite a few journalists who've gone over to the other side, if you want to say that, and have gone into communications and public relations and have found tremendous success there. So that is something that we've seen that's changed. We've got, other journalists that have come up, but the Financial Post, for example, as a newspaper, Holly Shaw, who's an amazing reporter, has gone into public relations, and we don't see that retail reporting in the same way, certainly not nearly as comprehensive now because she's no longer there and she wasn't replaced. So that is something that we've seen elsewhere. Marina Strauss, an incredible journalist, was at the Globe and Mail for, I think, over 40 years. She admitted in the end, and she's wonderful. But, it has a wonderful replacement. But nevertheless, we've seen a shift in journalism and reporting, and it's not as comprehensive as it could be. So, I hope honestly, I do also hope that part of that isn't because of Retail Insider. I mean, I hope we're not scooping things to the point that others are not reporting on stuff, but I mean, that could be a little bit of it as well. But I think we get pretty granular, and I didn't see this in other media. Like we just reported on, a bedding store that's going to be opening. It has like $1 million mattress. So this isn't just, Sleep Country Canada or anything like that. This is a very high-end brand, but this isn't something probably that you wouldn't see this in the Globe and Mail. Maybe the Toronto Star might do something, but they would want something splashy. So I don't know. I think we're filling a gap that needed to be filled.
I think you are. I think you are definitely, and you're so specialized. You're part of what we call the trade publications, but I think you play a very important role. And if we want to know what's happening, who's opening a store, who just, what's happening, we all read Retail Insider, especially now, what's happening with Royal Mount. It's very interesting to see everything you cover about what's happening there, because it's a big thing happening in Quebec that we haven't had any big mall like this in I don't know how many years, in a few decades probably. So it's a big new project, and so there's so many new brands coming and entering the Quebec market, and you cover it as well. So that's very interesting to see. I love reading what you do, because then I find out and I know about I feel like I know what's happening out there. But you're right. So the landscape is very different in the sense, and it's funny. Like I went to an event yesterday, and Jeannie Baker was there, and that reminded me. Yeah, she launched a book, and she was presenting her book at there's a fashion school in Montreal called La Salle College. And I'm like, oh my God, we live in such a different world, because back in those days, we had fashion journalists, as we had, specialized. Everybody was very specialized. You had all these journalists very specialized in their field, and that doesn't exist anymore. So maybe that explains why you can, you can expand and be so important in this field, and talking about anything regarding, anything consumption. Retailers. So that's, I think you play a very important role there for sure.
Totally. And honestly, it's for other publications out there that aren't as specialized or don't have that reporting. I really do think a lot of this comes down to cost. It can cost quite a bit of money to hire journalists and have them write. We've actually got a fairly small team at Retail Insider. It's probably smaller than most people would realize. I think we'll grow it again, but one person's on mat leave, and we, we have another. Our editor-in-chief moved to a new company that he's starting, and so I've taken on a bit of a role there with Mario Tonaguzzi. So we are a small team, but we've been able to cover things quite extensively here, even with some other guest writers. But I do, owning a media company myself. I know the challenges around building revenue in order to be able to cover expenses, in order to be able to produce the news, and having a lot of specialized reporters. I mean, you need a lot of advertising, or in one way or another, you need revenue sources, whatever those might be. And I think those challenges are there, and that's certainly why I think, especially with the newspapers that are in print, which is, I don't want to say archaic, but it costs a lot more money to print and distribute. So the distribution of these newspapers has gone down substantially. The journalists that were there, many of them are no longer there. I mean, Mario Tonaguzzi, who writes for Retail Insider, was with the Calgary Herald for a good number of years, well over 30. I think it was maybe even close to 40, but I don't think it was quite that long. But getting there. So, it's, I think, it's a situation where, media's had to cut back, and that's really impacted the media and has impacted coverage. And as a result, our history isn't being documented as much, and the news isn't being told, I guess, currently in its form. So if you go to one of the post media publications, you're going to be hard pressed to find very much in the way of retail news at this point.
No, for sure. So besides generating revenues, what are your biggest challenges?
Oh, goodness. I mean, well, right now, I think for any Canadian media that's in the area of news, social media has been a bit of a challenge with the Meta blocking Canadian news. That's
Oh
impacted us
my
probably
God,
less
that's
than
so
it would.
true.
It's probably less than a lot of the bigger mainstream media, but it still is having an impact, and it's just even a nuisance because we have Instagram and Facebook, and we try to bypass this in any way that we can, and we still have social media engagement. I mean, we're not necessarily seeing a lot of traffic coming from that social media. LinkedIn and the others, we see way more because they're not blocked, and they're also a bit more robust. But we still want to keep the social media for at least just engagement, just to show that we're there and present, because I think that's important too, is just that awareness. And a lot of younger people are consuming news through social media, which again, I mean, and I've been told this by younger people. So this blockage of news by social media has been just terrible, I think.
This is true. For some reason, I have two accounts, and on one of the account, I can see you. I see what you do, but I'm sure like so many people don't see you anymore and used to consume your information through Instagram, or if you're interested by something, then you go on the blog, and so that's interesting. I forgot about that, but yeah, it's a big issue, a big challenge for.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to be remedied soon. I like it because Google had also threatened to block things, and that would have been catastrophic. Actually, I think if Google was going to come in, because currently, we're all really, and that is another issue. On top of social media that I should mention too, is just search engine optimization, because that can change. Like Google might change its rules. I mean, I know that there's some headwinds coming for Google right now, but in the meantime, you need that. Like, the reason we get so many readers is because we have good search engine optimization. But if something happens where we lose that, we're in trouble. So that's very important to be able to maintain. So those are definitely challenges out there, at least for online publications like mine.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think AI will change a lot of things? Well, I guess we all don't really know exactly the extent of it, but it will change many things for sure. So maybe Google's going to change, their way of, pushing content, and so it's going to be different, and we'll see what's going to happen. So, but what do you think is going to happen?
Well, artificial intelligence is interesting. I think this is going to have more of an impact on the media than people even want to admit. But for sure, this is going to have a tremendous impact. We're already using it more for efficiencies around, creating creating things that are SEO friendly, subheadings in articles, titles, focus key phrases, and metas, which are search engine optimization friendly, being able to summarize reports. Taking quotes from interviews and being able to have those summarized or at least disseminated into a more meaningful and useful format. So I found that my efficiency in writing has been able to be increased because of that. So that has been a tremendous benefit.
It's a great tool for sure. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But I do think that in the longer term, and it may even be happening now, but I do think that artificial intelligence is going to have an impact on the media in terms of probably reducing some employee requirements. So there's probably going to be some job losses, I would think, because of this.
Oh, definitely.
So
that's for sure.
it'll be interesting to see. But the optimization that can be done with artificial intelligence around reporting or just working with information is way more powerful than I think most people realize. So it's something definitely to watch out for, because I do think that we are still going to have certainly human reporters reporting on the news in the future. I really hope we do anyways. That's my plan. But nevertheless, I think we are going to see an integration of artificial intelligence, which is going to create some efficiencies, which in turn could result in some job losses. For example, I know someone that produces, I won't say who, but they have a glossy kind of a magazine that they produce, and it's quite niche, and it's in one geographic region in Canada. But this person, she said that it would normally take about 4 days to put this together, and she put the whole thing in, including with the images and everything, in about 4 hours. So,
wow. Yeah, it helps to save so much time, like gathering information, and oh my God, that's 4 times less, so that's a lot. So she needs less people, less writers, and oh my God. That's
Yeah, and she did it
interesting.
all herself. It was I think it was through ChatGPT, but it was produced quite quickly. I mean, it's glossy, so I think that images are a little more what people might be looking at for this particular publication. But nevertheless, she had justified it. She said, she wasn't looking to hire anyone anyway. She said she just became more efficient, and that was the benefit there. But yeah, but if she had, let's say, employees, in a different world, she could, in theory, have let some go or something. I don't know, but that wasn't the case here. But that is that
Yeah, for
possibility for
sure.
other
Like
publications.
us, we do everything in both languages, as you know. So translation is a used to be a big expense for us. Now it's not as much as it was, for sure. Like we use, tools like ChatGPT, and they are impressive. Like sometimes even like we take something in English, we translate it in French. We're like, oh my God, this is quite good. You still need a human to proofread everything, but the translator is no longer there. That's a good example. So yeah, a lot of changes, and it's happening fast.
It is. It is. Yeah, I started going down a bit of a journey even just in September of this year, doing this recording in December. But I would say my learnings over just the last few months have been massive, absolutely massive, and has in turn been transformative for the business as well.
I know. We use it quite a bit too because it helps us. Like sometimes, if we work with international brands, it takes them forever to get back to us with some information. So now it's such a powerful tool. And then we we compare information we find, but it's surprising. Sometimes like, oh my God, I'm going to need, I'm just making it up, but images from the 60s, but I'm not sure when was the first time they presented this furniture, for example. And we have the answers like this instead of waiting 3 days. It's very impressive for sure. Oh, so how do you pick your subjects? So how do you decide on the editorial side of the Retail Insider? Do you make any specific choices, or how does it work?
Oh, good question. I mean, it can be subjective, I guess, to a degree. I guess I try. I mean, I make a lot of the decisions around it. Mario is a co-editor-in-chief currently, so we, I guess, both make editorial decisions. But and he puts a lot of stuff out based on, say, press releases that are coming in, and he'll do quick reads. I've actually shifted a bit. Again, I said, we started a bit of a journey in September, so I'm still also working through a few things in terms of how we do editorial because we have reorganized things a little bit with Retail Insider and also expanded it. But in terms of picking the topics, we would look for something big, like say either a national retailer or even a smaller retailer that's doing something interesting. I think it's, can we tell it? Is it something that people are going to be interested in, our readers? Is it an interesting story that we can tell? Is it an interesting brand? Or is it honestly sometimes something I'm interested in? I know that sounds silly, but if I find something fascinating, maybe somebody else will as well. So, and maybe I want to tell that story. So I've gotten way more into writing. I mean, I wasn't writing quite as much before in my previous role as being really only the publisher. But now, again, I mentioned with AI and just me coming back here and our editor-in-chief having moved on, I'm doing a lot more writing now, and it's a lot of fun. Anyway.
So what do you think the future is? What do you think the future is for Retail Insider? I don't know. Is it possible today to think 5 years ahead with everything happening? I think since the pandemic, it's been like insane to start planning like ahead, but
Yeah, no, I've got some goals. I mean, we're looking at doing, I think, a French language version of Retail Insider. So we'll see
that
how
would
that
be
goes.
amazing.
But AI, and we would want to get this perfect. And as you've mentioned, it may not be perfect. And I don't speak French so well. I'm so sorry.
You just need someone to do proofreading, no translator.
I've got somebody that can do that and is actually a translator. So we could do it. Yeah, it's terrible because I'm half French Canadian, but I can't even speak French anymore. It's just because I grew up in Alberta, right?
Such a bad story. Like,
my family
with
is a
everything we
LaSalle,
know, I say that all the time. With everything we know like young kids, like they learn 3 languages if they are in contact with, they have the chance to be in contact with 3 languages. I don't understand even today why don't they teach us? Even myself, I still have this typical French Canadian accent when I speak English. But it would be nice. Like we should be speaking 2 languages, all of us. No reason,
I know. And I think I'm too old now to try to learn. it's almost 50. It's gonna, teach an old dog new tricks or old horse. I think it's old dog.
And do you have any like personal practice on social media? Are you on TikTok yourself, or?
I have a TikTok account. I've never posted on it. I wasn't sure are we even allowed to use it soon? I don't know if it'll be banned, but hopefully not. I don't know what's going on with that. But no, I mean, I've obviously mentioned Meta already, but Instagram is quite good. Personally, yeah, I'm still on, Instagram. I'll post stuff. I mean, I do some public speaking and, I guess as a retail consultant, I mean, I don't have a lot of time to do stuff like that these days. It's just really busy with this business. Which is covering the expenses, including my own. But nevertheless, I do some public speaking. So my, Instagram account, I've tried to kind of brand it a little bit so that, I'm showing I'm at conferences and giving talks. Like, I gave a talk to LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy, like the Canadian division, and Tiffany, which is a part of LVMH, but the jewelry brand, gave us a separate talk to the leadership team there. So I posted a few things there just because, if anyone wants to hire me, they can do that. And, or just, it's also just there for fun because, they were a little, they were kind of bucket list type of things for life where, I never thought I'd be standing up in front of the management team for LVMH Canada giving a talk. And I thought, well, this is really cool because, I'm humble. Like I don't think ever going to have an ego or anything like that. So I'm just really happy that I have opportunities to do stuff like this. And I'm really grateful that I can do this because I grew up in a small town where I always aspire, I watched TV shows and I always aspired to live in the big city. And, a lot of those TV shows took place in Toronto and New York City, but, kind of wanted to live in Toronto and
of course.
Anyways, there's a lot of stuff
city.
a lot of stuff from my childhood that I've been able to live as an adult. And I got interested in retail because as a kid, actually, I think this is kind of funny. I was talking to someone last night about this. There was a store in the town that I lived in that dumped its excess stock of magazines just in a field near where I lived. So there's all these magazines there, but I went through them. I was a kid, I was still a kid and just searching around like kids do. And some of them were about retail in Toronto. And so I got this real, I was taking pages of the magazines, took the whole magazines home. And I was just enthralled with this retail stuff and this, the glamour of the big city. And then watching Jeannie Becker on fashion television. And, I remember one time, they did this event at Holt Renfrew on Bloor Street. Anyways, these were all things that I was just dreaming that I would be able to do. And lo and behold, today I was at the flagship Holt Renfrew store. I attended the opening of the new men's floor, what they built on the third floor. And, again, it's just kind of a dream being able to, I guess fulfill some of these childhood, almost like fantasies of living in the big city, dealing with the glamour of retail, and I'm just really grateful for what's happened here because I started the company quite late in I don't want to say late in my life, but I think I was 36 when I started Retail Insiders. So the math would be right. 36. So I was approaching 40 already. So I wasn't young when I started it.
We're going to be there around for a long time, I think when we have fun doing what we do, then we just, keep exploring and learning new things. And you have all those new experience and all these big brands inviting you to speak to them. That's so much fun. And there's more and more of these, as we know, LVMH and all the other groups too are more and more present in Canada, which is so much fun.
Yeah. And then even longer term, I'm looking at starting a couple of new publications. I have a business partner based in Calgary who is involved in digital web transformation, among other things. So as having that expertise, we're growing Retail Insider. We're looking to start in 2025 a publication a bit more in e-commerce and in strategy around online as well as retail technology. And part of that, honestly, part of that is just brand building, building profile, building business opportunities, and building opportunity to make money from advertisers. So
yes,
that's one thing.
Idea.
Yeah, one thing I would say about media that it's a frustration and it's silly for me to ever even complain about it because it's life and it's business and it's the way things work because things aren't free. But for me, I think the part that I like the least about what I do with my job is having to do things like business development and actually just having to make money from stuff, because in a perfect world, I would have $1 billion and I would just be, running Retail Insider and it'd be a lot of fun and all kinds of stuff would be, and I wouldn't have to worry about the money
Telling
part.
stories, yes, right. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be that would be pretty easy actually, compared to what I do. I wrote 2 articles today already, and that was not the hard part of my day. That was kind of the fun part of my day. So if I was able to do that, that would be wonderful. But longer term, my goal for Retail Insider probably, as many business owners would be, and I don't know what that timeline would be because the right offer would have to come, but there is always that possibility with a business like this that I could sell it. So,
of course,
take the business, perfect it, make the content good, create something that's formulaic, ensure that it's, good, quite profitable, and then taking that business model and possibly selling it. But I would never retire. I would go on and, I don't know, write a book about the history of retail, do public speaking. I don't know what, but I wouldn't quit. I would want to keep doing stuff if I had,
No, this is what I say. Maybe you're like me. If you don't play golf, I don't play golf. So what am I going to do?
Yeah. I would never stop. Yeah, I would never stop like working. I don't know if I can call this. I mean, it is work, but for me, it's also fun. So it's just my life. I mean, because I have kind of a work-life blend where at 11 o'clock I could be, doing stuff for Retail Insider, or 6 in the morning like today. But it depends what's happening. But there's always going to be time in the middle of the day for stuff. Maybe not so much time for socializing, but I can go to the gym or whatever. But I think throughout the day, I found that my life and my business with Retail Insider, they do mix together quite a bit, and I've had to get used to that. But I think that's okay. I think maybe that's frustrating for anyone else that's either a friend or wants to be a romantic partner, which no one's knocking on that door. But that would be a frustration because I don't have a 9-to-5 job, and a lot of entrepreneurs I think are in the same boat. You're probably in the same boat too. So
I'm in the same boat too, for sure. Yeah, that's so interesting. But you've been doing it, for more than almost 13 years almost. So you have this knowledge and you're connected. So you have all these connections that has so much value because so many things that are happening in the market. So you're part of the history for sure. So that's so much fun. So what do we wish you in the future? Finding the perfect buyers in a few years that would allow you to stay and not worry about money.
That sounds pretty nice. I think, yeah. And I'd be happy to be kept on, certainly. I mean, I did have a few years ago an offer to buy the business, and I would have been kept on as the editor-in-chief. But I'm kind of glad that didn't go through because I'm having a lot of fun now doing what I'm doing because I've come back into the business, like I mentioned. Well, it was in July where Dustin on our team was our editor-in-chief and had left, and this gave me a bit of an opportunity to come in and kind of get my hands dirty. So I looked at Retail Insider almost like a sandbox to play in, and I thought, okay, wait, I own this media company, and I had sort of, I don't want to say stepped away, but I wasn't nearly as involved in a lot of the day-to-day because I've got a magazine and a few other things that I own as well. But I came back in here to Retail Insider and I thought, this is really cool. I have this opportunity to come in and really influence something that a lot of people follow. And I started going out more and meeting people. And I was blown away by the fact that when I would go to events or talk to retailers or even just walk into stores in different places and introduce myself, they either knew what Retail Insider was or they even recognized my face. So apparently I've been on camera too much. Because I used to like my anonymity, and I don't really have that anymore. So, in certain circles, in certain places I can go in.
Yes, of course.
It's always nice not to be known who you are.
Oh, so long live to Retail Insider, and hopefully this amazing buyer comes along and help you keep dreaming and working and having fun.
Yeah, or whatever happens, happens. Yeah, I don't know, but I wouldn't want it to go away, like I said, because I do think that the historical documentation and what's in Retail Insider over the past 13 years is probably, I think, important as a part of Canadian history. And I say that with humility. I'm not saying it because I'm the owner and it's awesome. I'm saying it because a lot of effort went into it, and there's a pretty comprehensive documentation of the history over the years from, Sears Canada closing, Target coming in and leaving.
We're talking about Target today, yeah.
Yeah. Nordstrom coming in and leaving, and eventually Saks Fifth Avenue coming in and leaving.
Yes, I know. These are important, data, even for other brands, major brands that want to come in, and it's great for them to, go and read about what happened to these people and what they did wrong.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's part of the story too. I mean, I take a very positive spin on our reporting for the most part. We will report on things that have closed and whatnot, and I try to do that respectfully. I mean, I'm thinking of Old Hyde House in Ancaster, or no?
I agree. It's always easy to always easy to tell after. Oh, this is why. That's the reason why. But when a brand enter a market, they don't know. It's not so easy.
That's right. Yeah. And getting to know a local market is important, certainly. And Canada is certainly not just one market. I mean, doing business in Quebec is very different than doing business in Ontario. British Columbia is a very different market too, and the demographics in Alberta, or at least, the political leanings might be quite different than what you would see in the lower mainland of BC. So there's, we have a lot of differences here in Canada, and I know that even with language and culture, Canada is not a simple place to do business or even just to figure out.
It's very complex. You're absolutely right. There's about like 5 different markets, and with just like the population of California. So from some American brands, it's really hard to understand, why did they have to do so many different marketing plan or communication plans. They don't get it, and sometimes they don't enter some markets because they're afraid. They're afraid of the regulations. I'm like, man, it's not so difficult. You just have to find the right people, and well, so much fun. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with me. And hopefully we'll be talking in another podcast about, what happened past the pandemic. And there's a lot of new companies entering the market, a lot of closing. It's interesting right now. So there are so many changes. So it's going to be fun too. So where do we find you? So Retail Insider, the website, is it the best place to find you?
I think so, yeah. We've got a website. I've got a personal Instagram. If anyone wants to look up Craig Patterson, Toronto, that's me. Retail Insider, www.retail-insider.com. And then we've got a LinkedIn page that I think just surpassed either 52 or 53,000 people. I think it was 52,000.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm going to put all the links below the episode. So thank you so much for accepting to be part in this 230th episode of the NATA PR School. Thank you. And as I say to my listeners, à la semaine prochaine. Hey, you want to learn more about how to implement PR strategies? Head on to natapr.com and get on our list. You will also receive the NATA PR model on how to create a successful PR campaign. If you want to become a client, just send us an email to nata@natapr.com. Talk to you next week. À la semaine prochaine.